It's Modern Medicine with Mark Kaplan and John Doherty, dedicated to exploring the latest trends in healthcare, health policy, and politics. Modern Medicine is sponsored by CEFCU, and opinions expressed on Modern Medicine are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent the views of the sponsors, nor is any medical advice intended to replace an appropriate dialogue between you and your physician. Now, here's Modern Medicine on News Talk 590 WROW.
Super Saturday before Super Sunday, and boy, do we have an interesting show today. My only worry here, John Doherty, is that we're going to run out of time, and I'm going to have like two topics that I wanted to talk about. There's too much stuff to talk about.
Well, we can always come back at 2 o'clock in the morning if you want.
I see I'm busy at that time.
You're busy at that time. Well, let's take a second to thank CEFCU, State Employees Federal Credit Union, rated #1 in the capital.
Topic today because it involves everybody. And you can call up if you have any questions, comments. We'll give you the phone number now. The number is 476. We're talking to a psychiatrist today. His name is Dr. Ferraioli. He's a board-certified psychiatrist. He is in practice in Clifton Park. That's where his office is. He's been in the region for quite a bit of time. He's done a lot of things, a graduate of Albany Medical College and undergrad Princeton University.
And he likes to write books.
This is a smart guy.
Yes, he is.
I think I may have to go home on this one. Number 476-5959. He's got 2 great books, which we will tell you, and I've been looking at both of them, tell you how to get a hold of them. First
Hold
of all,
up so everybody can see, Mark.
Okay, camera 3, please come in. Dr. Ferraioli, welcome.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
Being that you're a psychiatrist, why don't we start out with this, then we'll get into...
Mark, Dr. Ferraioli was good enough to share with us 2 of his books, one of which is Cobwebs and Ugly Wallpaper, which I guess are available on Amazon.
They are. Amazon.com, yes.
Okay, and I just want to go through some of the points that you had in your book, which I found were very interesting. First of all, define for us, what is it? What do you mean by inner self?
Inner self is a term that I used it's kind of another way of saying true self or real self. I define it really in terms of 4 things. This goes for me, this goes for you guys, this is the same for all of us. It's what do I want, what do I not want, what do I like, and what don't I like. I find that what happens to people as we go from childhood into adulthood is we really lose a sense of that. You can ask a typical kid, mine included. Hello, Jesse, Chippy. You can ask them, hey, what do you want today? And guess what? They pretty much won't have much of a problem telling you. They're a little closer to, in what I call closer to the truth than we are because we've been around longer. We've had a lot more going on in our lives emotionally. We've had chances to develop defense mechanisms. We've been more traumatized in general than at that young age they have. So we start to lose sense of what it is that we want, don't like. And I think part of the journey for us all, again, none of us are excluded. I often say to people, to get into my practice, you have to be smarter than me and I have to be crazier than you.
I guess we wouldn't qualify, Mark.
Lost my headphones on. Is to get a sense of how to fight our way back to that somewhat innocent stage where we really kind of knew ourselves. We knew what we liked, what we don't like, what we want, and what we don't want. It gets to a point where you can get to a point in life where you could be at the Dunkin' Donuts and the person behind the counter says to you, what do you have? And you really don't know. You can't even pick the donut. That's how bad it can really get.
So how do you get back to where you were or where you should be?
Well, you come to therapy with me, of course, and it's a whole journey. And I think it's one of the most rewarding jobs that we can undertake. All of us. This is why I invented the term, which you'll probably ask me about eventually. Is this term LVAC, LVAC, which stands for listen, validate. It's a mode of communication, by the way. It stands for listen, validate, ask, then comment last. See? The problem is that starting with our children, we get anxious, we get worried, we love them very much, so that makes us comment first. My child comes up to me and says, I'm thinking of putting this on and I'm going to go catch the bus. And the first thing I want to do is say, no, what are you crazy? It's cold outside.
Fire ready aim.
Yeah, fire ready aim. And instead of that, see, what happens when we comment first is we displace that person's agenda with ours, with our anxiety about what they're telling us. And so what we're requiring of them with our comment is that they abandon in a sense, their selves, the sense of what they're trying to say, what they want, what they're feeling, what they want, don't want, what they like. The thing I was talking about before, the sense of self. When we comment too early on, we're essentially requiring that that person abandon whatever they were about to go into with us or talk about with us and get onto our agenda, our anxiety. So if Mark says to me, Tony, I have a headache today, and I'm not feeling well. And I say to Mark, you'll be all right. Now, that's probably because I don't like the idea of you having a headache, and I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to make you feel better. And so I'm going to say, you'll be all right. See, that may not be so helpful. I mean, it may be helpful in a superficial kind of way, but the closer and more emotionally intimate you are with someone in your life, for example, a spouse, a child, the less helpful those sorts of comments really are. So instead, you use this LVAC sort of approach. So Mark says, I got a headache and I'm tired, I don't feel well. I say, well, I'm sorry to hear that. That would be like a validating comment. Or as one of my patients once said, which I can't say, obviously can't say any identifying features, but I have some very smart people, as I said before, in my practice. One person said to me, well, why do you call it validate? Why don't you call it acknowledge? Same thing. I like it. Acknowledge.
4765959. We'll get to the rest of LVAC. Thought about it. I've used it. To me, the most difficult part of this is the validate part. What if your child comes to you and has done something awful and says, I just set the house on fire? My daughter's never done that. and she won't. Well, if I just set the house on fire, what do you say? Well, it seems like a fun thing to do, but how do you validate everything? What if something is like totally wacky?
That's right. Well, yeah, that's the thing. That would be a good time for a comment. I set the house on fire. Well, geez. Dad, let me get the keys to your car. I got a fifth of vodka. I need the keys to your car. That's a good time.
How do you validate that?
Right. Well, see, that's just that you wouldn't validate that.
Okay.
See, there are times when, in terms of, we human beings, there is I would say a minority of the time, a minority percentage of the time when we do need the kind of immediate structure that a comment gives. If you're teaching someone a language, they're trying to speak Italian or French, and they get it completely wrong. You wouldn't necessarily say, that was really good that you just insulted my mother when you're trying to order spaghetti. That would be a problem. But what you want to try, there are times in life when you do need to give that immediate structure. The problem is we do it too much. Too much. I often talk in my office, we're almost too healthy. We have too much physical health. We have too much wind. If you had sparing amounts of physical health, there's in fact a short story I wrote. It's on the LVAC Nation website called The Father. It's about a guy who's literally physically limited. He says a few words, he can't breathe. So when he's trying to help raise his children, he's got to be careful. He's got to choose his words carefully. He can't just comment on everything. The same idea. It becomes, there's a minority of times when the comment has to come out. The person needs that structure. The problem is we do it way too much. We need to reset ourselves to be able to modulate our anxiety internally. We need to grow this way. This is an adult skill. We haven't even gotten into adult skills, right? There are 10 basic adult skills. One of them is anxiety modulation. Another one's anger modulation. What do you do with anger? Do we really know how to do anger? Not a lot of us know how to do anger. Either we repress it or we get rid of it, or we explode. So anxiety modulation, like anger modulation, like restraint is another adult skill, needs to be developed inside of us so that we don't need to constantly comment in our lives to people. Now if the child says, I set the house on fire, well, guess what? If you're not anxious and you don't comment at that point, maybe you're, the meds need to be decreased, if you're, whose meds? Maybe mine, I don't know. But the idea that we just do it too much, that often what's happening is it's not the person coming to us with the situation that's the problem. The problem is within us. We don't have that adult skill of anxiety modulation. So in order to discharge our anxiety, we comment.